Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Vallecitos Water District on Wednesday, October 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. meeting via teleconference. I'm going to read a quick notice to the public. Pursuant to section 54953 of the California Government Code, in the interest of public health and safety during the proclaimed state of emergency and due to the fact that state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, the Board of Directors of Vallecitos Water District will be meeting by teleconferencing. During this period of time, Vallecitos Water District will not be making any physical location available for members of the public to observe the meeting or offer in-person public comment. Members of the public attending the meeting via the Zoom video conferencing platform can express their desire to offer public comment or provide input on an agenda item at the appropriate time by utilizing the raised hand function. Persons who have dialed into the meeting and would like to make a comment can enter *9 on their phone, and they will be identified by their phone number when it is their turn to speak. Additional instructions for online participation will be posted on the district's website at www.vwd.org/meetings. Great, let's move on. Director Ellithorpe, would you please lead us in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance? And if we can have the flag up, that'd be great.
Yeah, Jonathan, there it goes.
Thank you.
Okay, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Ellithorpe. Go ahead and conduct tonight's roll call. Director Boyd Hodgson.
Here.
Director Pennick.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Ellithorpe.
Here,
And I am here too. Moving right along. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please.
Move to approve. Hernandez.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Pennick.
Right. We have a motion by Director Hernandez, a second by Director Pennick to adopt tonight's agenda. Go ahead and conduct another roll call vote. Director Ellithorpe.
yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Pennick.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any public comment at this time, Glenn, or has any been submitted prior to the meeting?
Nothing was submitted prior to the meeting, and Miss Gail Martin has her hand raised right now.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and recognize Miss Martin. You do have the agenda up on the presentation. I don't know if you mean to or not.
I could stop sharing that if you'd like. I didn't know if you wanted to go in the public comment, but okay. You want me to call on Miss Martin?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Miss Martin.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good evening, Vallecitos Water District Board of Directors. Regarding the engineering meeting minutes, are the remaining cap fees of 5.6 million, which is 3.4 million water and 2.2 million sewer, or do we also add, following the third sentence in that opening comment, do we also add 2.1 million of water and 5.2 million of sewer to the remaining cap fees? Number two, how much of the cap fees remaining to be collected would already be in the developer fund if we didn't defer the time for the developers to pay? Number three, could we have avoided last month's $9.7 million transfer from ratepayer money over to developer funds if we had collected the cap fees the way that every other water district in San Diego County collects these fees? Number four, has Vallecitos Water District done a study to see how much money we are out because we don't require developers to buy into the system to pay for the existing capacity they use. This is money that could be used to offset our rates for us customers. And lastly, I'm very concerned about our current cap fee rates and the lack of a buy-in, especially since you are estimating projects of 33.8 million water and 55.8 million sewer, almost a whopping $90 million. We need to have the developers pay at the inception of projects, not at the end of projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Okay, moving right along to presentations. Glenn, you want to go ahead and kick us off with that?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to turn these over to Chris Robbins, and he's going to walk you through the two presentations tonight. Chris, take it away.
Thank you, General Manager. Good evening, President Snella, board members. So as one of our efforts to get customers to reduce their outdoor water use, Vallecitos participates in a regional landscape contest, and we award customers that best exhibit the beauty of a California-friendly garden. We look at the customer's water use, their appeal, their use of keeping the water on their property, multiple categories that we look at, and we have 3 winners that we'd like to recognize. Some of them might be here tonight. I'm not sure. We invited them. 3rd place was Ellen Kaplan from San Marcos. 2nd place was Bruce Ferguson from San Marcos. And 1st place was Doug and Pam Hausman from the little part of our service area over in Escondido. And General Manager Purim, did you see any of those names?
I do. I see Bruce, and I see the Houseman. I see Doug Houseman.
That's probably Bruce Ferguson. So let's see if we can let him talk to the board for just a minute, just to introduce himself.
Yeah, actually, I see all 3 are here. So
good. Ellen made it as well. Maybe we
well,
go with Ellen
I
first.
take it back. I see Ferguson and Houseman. So that's the
Bruce Ferguson's our 2nd place winner, and maybe he can
okay.
just make a few comments to the board. Bruce, would you please?
Mr. Ferguson, go ahead.
Hello. Can you
Hey,
hear me?
Bruce, we can hear you.
All right, great. Well, I'm honored to be selected for the landscape contest. Happy to get that 2nd place and honor, and it's been fun trying to get the information together and save water and work with the district.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, and thank you for everything that you did. And I'm sure you probably, all 3 of you probably have gotten questions from your neighbors, and I know that you'll all be kind of spreading the word about the importance of conservation and what we can do with our homes and our yards. So thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. I certainly will.
President Sedella, you made a really nice segue to Doug and Pam Houseman. They propagate, as part of their landscape, they propagate succulents and sell them, but also work with other members in their neighborhood to help them make the same choices. And Glenn, if you could give them a chance to speak as well.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Houseman?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hi. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you having the contest. This has been a hobby of mine for about 6 years, and we take all of our plants that we propagate and donate to a charity up in Idaho that we used to work with when we lived up there. And go out to quite a few of the neighbor homes and have been putting in some different sections of them with succulents and trying to cut down their water use.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Hausman, since he's kind of does this more than just on a personal level. Have you ever attempted, or have you had any traction with trying to work with like HOAs for their community landscaping and having more water friendly landscape and succulents incorporated in their communities?
Yes, I've been working with Emerald Heights up here, HOA, and
Nice.
I did a bunch of their pots and succulents just about a month or 2 ago. And they've been changing around, trying to move to more of a succulent type plants or low water use type plants there around the clubhouse area.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Well, thank you and congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, we were really pleased with the submittals this year. Alicia made a video. I think most of you have already seen it. If any of you haven't, I will email you the link to watch the video. It's a little long because there's three obviously winners. It's about 8 minutes, but I will email it to you if you haven't seen it and give you a chance to look at and let each of these customers of ours tell their own story.
I have seen the video and it is phenomenal. So for those that may be watching us on the Zoom, if you haven't had a chance to see it, I'm sure I think board and staff have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, definitely worthwhile. And congratulations again to all the winners. Right. Anything else, Chris, on this one?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Chris has our next item too, about an award we've won recently. So Chris, back to you.
So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this is showing. Does everybody see the Communications Achievement Award?
Yes.
Super. So this one deserves a couple shout outs. I'm really excited about this one. This was our submittal. Well, and here's the downside of it. This was submitted in 2019, right towards the end of 2019. And we all know what happened around the end of 2019. And went to AWWA and got lost in the COVID process. And we sort of asked about our award and didn't hear anything. And then eventually Alicia noticed that we had won. So we followed up with AWWA and said, hey, we're the winners. Don't we get, something for that? And they were like, oh, we don't know what happened, but yes, you are the winner. So we finally got the plaque in 2021. So almost a 2-year process for this to show up. But what this Public Communications Achievement Award is for, really the shout out has to go out to Alicia Yerman. Alicia works in the Public Information Department with me and Lisa, and she creates those videos. And this is for the entire Work We Do series of videos. It's really Alicia's magic that turns those into stories. And I have to throw a second shout out to Director Hernandez. Director Hernandez, a long time ago, when we first started doing this, she said, why don't you submit this for an award? And I said, well, let me build up a library so that we have enough to get an award, and I will do that. And Director Hernandez, just so you know, this is not an award for the Cal Nevada section. This is nationwide. So this is a nationwide award for your Vallecitos Water District for the Work We Do videos.
Thank you. Great
Well,
job.
that's incredible, Chris, and thank you for sharing it. Hopefully we'll be able to hang the plaque either in our main lobby at the district or in the boardroom for everybody to see. And I've said it so many times over the last few years that you and your entire team just do a phenomenal job with your public outreach. And anytime now that I'm going to be attending an event with you or Lisa, I will now introduce you as the award-winning public information team. And so it's just such a thrill to be able to be recognized for what you guys have, all your hard work and everything that you've done.
And President Sanella, let's make a plan that we will hold off on putting this plaque in the boardroom until we're back in the boardroom. How about that?
That works
We
for
will
me.
mount it upside down.
Well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank
Okay,
you, Chris.
we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. As you know, all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or member of the public requests that a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it'll be considered separately under action items. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. I think I just beat you, Director.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's a motion by Director Boyd Hodgson and a second by Director Sanella to approve tonight's consent calendar. is there any other discussion or items that anybody wants to discuss further? I don't see any, so we'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Pinnock,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson,
Yes.
Director Elthart,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that takes us to our first action item of the evening, item 2.1, and that is the asset management program overview.
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead.
start this off.
You want to
Yeah,
introduce us?
I'll start us off, President Sinella.
Thank
The
you.
board has heard us talk about the importance of asset management and the asset management program and how we really are going to use it to make sure that we oversee all the infrastructure that we manage here. And tonight, Susan Bowman, our asset management supervisor, is going to give you an overview of the asset management program. And we'd love to answer any questions you might have. So Susan, over to you.
Thank you, General Manager Prom, President Sinella, and directors. Pleased to come before you today and explain to you what the asset management program is and what our goals and objectives are. This has been shared with the Engineering and Equipment Committee previously on a couple of occasions. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to go into a little bit more detail for the board members who haven't had a chance to learn about asset management. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. And you are seeing this, the board of directors?
Yes.
Asset management. Great. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to go over quite a few different aspects of asset management today, defining it, talking about the standards of where this comes from internationally, where it falls in with our current strategic plan. As I mentioned, the goals, objectives, the components that make up asset management as a system, and then talk a little bit about the plan, which is a tactical document that we'll be releasing an RFP for, where we are on that and where we are in the overall progression of asset management. Okay, so asset management can be considered a body of knowledge and management practices, helps us run our business effectively. With ultimately the goal is to minimize the total life cycle costs of acquiring, operating, maintaining, and renewing our assets. This asset management is primarily focused on our existing assets. To differentiate it, say, from a master plan or capacity planning, it's really focused on our existing assets that are in the ground. So therefore, we really need to understand the condition of them, understand and evaluate the way we maintain them, make sure that we're meeting the service levels that are set forth for the district. Looking at risk, that's a key component to understanding how we maintain our assets, being aware of our limited resources and knowing where we make informed decisions to spend those resources. So asset management as a business practice has been around for about 20 years. It was really initiated in the United Kingdom in the early 2000s. They put forth different standards that have also recently been turned into ISO standards. It's actually part of the core requirements for water and other asset intensive industries in the UK, in Australia, New Zealand. Water districts in those countries are required to have asset management plans following these guidelines that have been set forth. The EPA, as early as 2003, also adopted the concepts of asset management, and our guiding water agencies has also put forth guidance on that. Within alignment with our current strategic plan, asset management falls under infrastructure integrity, again, with the goal of being proactive in our maintenance and repairs, for safety, reliability, and optimally performing, adequately funding the infrastructure to ensure operational, financial, and rate stability. So again, that's the goal of looking at our assets from an asset management principles perspective. The current strategic plan has asset management called out as a specific strategy, and the replacement schedule, which we'll talk about here in a minute or so, which is really the core deliverable, if you will, of a solid asset management program. So there, internationally, as in those standards, the ISO standard, the PAWS standards, there's really some key principles and objectives that asset management is focused on. And for our district, we're very far along on a lot of these, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. But for some districts, some asset-intensive industries, they may not have all of this in place. So these really are the guiding principles of getting an asset management system and asset management business practice in place. What do we own? Pretty simple. What do you have? Where is it located? What's its condition? Critical item is its remaining useful life. You know, how much longer is this asset going to service us? What is its likelihood of failure and consequence of failure? Those two items make up our risk profiles. What's the desired level of service? What's the maintenance? And then really in the middle of all this, driving the reason for the asset management approach to managing our business is, what's the capital investment schedule going forward? How much money is needed to maintain, renew, and replace our existing infrastructure? So diving a little bit more in detail on these different principles. Again, the asset inventory and the location. This is a snapshot from Vallecitos back in 2020, actually defining what our the miles of pipe we have, its percentage by material, its average age, et cetera. This is critical information so we can anticipate when pipes will need to be renewed. The little map on the right there is just a snapshot from our GIS system. So we have a very solid GIS that shows us exactly where all of our assets are located. Condition assessments and remaining useful life. This is actually a snapshot from our the High Point water line inspection that we did. Oh my goodness, I think it's like a year and a half now. That we did this assessment on the pipes, and it really gave us a good solid understanding of the condition of these pipes, and also gave the district an opportunity to look at this technology from the company Pika. The engineering and equipment committee members will remember that we've looked at this a couple of times. It's a really great way to understand what the condition of our pipes is. Then, as I said, moving forward, another core principle of asset management is our risk profile. This is actually taken from the most recent ductile iron pipe condition assessment that we did in the San Alejo Hills area. We focused ourselves on the high risk areas, areas 8 and 9 within the district, to try to determine what the profile of those pipes in that area are for. And that would help us build the risk profile for failure of those pipes. We incorporate the consequence of that as well to give the full risk profile of our infrastructure. Level of service, again, another core component of the business practice of asset management. This is just an example, and every asset management program can be approached slightly differently and tailored to the particular district. In our case, you know, maybe our level of service is pretty well established, so it may not be something that we focus on too greatly because we know what our service levels are. Our maintenance program, what maintenance do we do? How do we keep our assets operating effectively and maintaining their ability to reach their expected useful life? And then, as I said, really the key outcome of an asset management program is to understand what funding is required to maintain, renew, and replace our assets over their full life cycle. Our life cycle of assets can be upwards of 70 years or more, maybe out to 100 years. And we really need to understand what's needed to maintain those assets. Our current asset valuation based on their installed cost here at Vallecitos is well over 370 million. That was the installed cost at the time of installation. The current valuation adjusted for inflation is approaching $800 million. And then the question that we have is what's the replacement value? The actual replacement value, today's dollars, based on the condition they're in and the work that's needed to replace them. So understanding that is a key component of this. Also, looking at the expected useful life, as I said, knowing that in 50 years or in 10 years, whatever it may be, that we need to replace something. Moving on, I'm going to turn this slide over to James, and he's going to go in a little bit depth on the replacement renewal aspects of asset management.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, so I'm going to just take the next couple of slides to talk to the board about kind of what that looks like and what are the main outcomes, the main outputs of asset management, how it interacts both with some of the discussion the board's been having on funding and our reserve levels, and how asset management is just one kind of data-driven metric that can be used to make future decisions on what that looks like. So just to get a perspective, we just took the $776 million of asset valuation. This is not replacement costs, because you have to remember a lot of those assets were put in when it was new development, it was bare ground. For us to replace those assets, we're digging in neighborhoods, there's asphalt, we have to keep people in water. So, you know, we don't have that number, and the asset management plan will give us that replacement number. But just to be kind of, I guess, optimistic, we're just using the 776 because that is actually a known number. And currently we have in our reserve levels, and this is just an estimate, roughly $75 million in there. All of it can't be spent, but again, being optimistic, that makes about 9% of our total asset valuation, not even the replacement cost. But every year we put money into reserves. And so working with Wes and his team, that average could be, you know, roughly $9 million. And so if we have a 70-year plus lifespan, and not all of it is used for replacement, but roughly, you know, estimated 75%, maybe a little higher, can be used for replacement. That's another $472 million. So we're really kind of filling in that pie, but there's still a potential $230 million unfunded. Now, this is over the lifespan, but it gives you an idea of $74 million is a lot of money. But when you consider that our actual replacement value is well above $1 billion, it's really a drop in the bucket. So asset management, this shows you the power of why asset management is important. We go to the next slide, Susan. So if I look at just an age base, if we go ahead and say, hey, you know what, when assets reach a certain level, this is what we'd be doing. The green line represents sewer, the water line represents, the blue line represents water. And this is the assets we would have to replace and the value of them in today's dollar every year to do that. Now, we don't have the manpower, the capability, or even the budget to do this, obviously. So there's got to be a better way. And we know that we could probably get more life out of the assets. And to be honest, we've actually already been doing an excellent job. Ed's staff already does an excellent job of asset management, but we're just kind of taking this plan, we'll take it to the next level and really project it out as a data-based tool that can be updated every year. Next slide, please. So here is just a scenario example. Again, this is just an example. If we did the age-based replacement, that's probably scenario one. And the reason that's scenario one is because we already do a good job in maintaining our assets, and having a high level of service. So you can see this number keeps on adding up and up. And this is just an example. This is not our actual numbers. But the scenarios that you see below, scenario 3, 3B, 5, 2, all these different scenarios are out results, basically outputs of what the asset management plan can do. And you can see over the course of our asset life, it could have hundreds of millions of dollars in potential savings if done right. So this is, you know, the gravity of this, I want the board to understand, is not a $1-2 million thing. It's a multiple $1 million thing, maybe in the hundreds, depending on what we find out. Now, To give you an example, and we didn't draw the lines because it didn't represent Vallecitos, but if you had an agency that, let's say, did not do a good job doing condition assessment and or maintenance initially, then you'd see probably a higher expense, kind of where she's drawing her arrow initially. And then once you get into the asset management program, you'd see that number come down and cross. The good news is, like I mentioned already, Ed and his crew, we do a pretty good job maintaining our assets. We stay on top of our existing equipment. We have regular schedules. So that is not our scenario. On the flip side, and I won't name any cities or any agencies, if you have an agency that, let's say, just didn't do its maintenance, it deferred, you would see a curve that would be underneath that line. But then the day of reckoning would come where that lack of maintenance would cost the agency more money. And basically you'd be going well above the scenario one line. And then hopefully if they do the right thing, you'd come back to the line at some point. So either way, either of those scenarios is not advantageous. What you're looking at is what we think is probably going to be a realistic result. We don't know where we'll end up in the scenarios until we have years of data. But the data gets updated, and it's a data-driven process, and the charts get updated annually within our asset management plan. Staff currently feels that because of our maintenance and protocols that we already have, are basically a really good foundation that we have already, we could actually probably stay on an asset replacement curve, but without replacing assets, we're just doing condition assessments. Now, I didn't put I probably should have added a slide here to give you the numbers. So forgive me for that. But an example is you have a $5 million pipeline to replace. Okay. Most asset management plans and condition assessment shows that somewhere around 80% of the pipeline is in perfectly good condition and has, decades of service life left. But if you do it just based on age base, you spend $5 million to replace it. Instead, you could spend $1 million assessing it, and then you find out that 80% of the pipeline is in good shape, replace that 20% for roughly another $1 million. So in other words, you end up spending $2 million, and now you've extended that asset life for another 40, 50 years. And that's kind of the power of the full plan when we take it in with a holistic approach. And then you can multiply that same kind of lesson on every pipe. Obviously, there'll be winners and losers. There'll be pipes that we have to replace sooner, but in the grand scheme of things, the laws of averages, so to speak, majority of our equipment, we can figure out how to extend that asset life, reduce losses, reduce emergencies, and also basically increase the level of service without increasing expenses, operational expenses for the district. Susan, go ahead and why don't you take the rest of the slides from here?
Okay. Thank you, Assistant General Manager Gumpel. So this next slide really emphasizes what he was saying there, is that the asset management program and then the plan, the tactical plan, really is to give us data-driven, asset-specific information for planning our future funding needs. The yellow lines really do represent if you're just looking at age-based and you don't know what condition and you're not incorporating that into your decision making. So it shows that realistic, actual information will allow us to ideally level out the investments, because it won't just be based on, say, if there was a large installation done 50 years ago. It gives us a lot of information so that we know what to replace at the right time. So moving past those principles and aspects of an asset management program, I wanted to get into what the different components of asset management are. You hear us talking about asset management a lot, and then there's these different components that make up a program. This is a slide that I borrowed that tries to sort of show you graphically how the different components may fit together. So you've got a management, a business practice. You have a program that is surrounded by the overall business practice of the organization, the system, which includes all of those aspects of the policy, the objectives, all of which feeds into your asset management plan, and then your portfolio, which is The tactical plan will give you the very detailed information about that portfolio and how you will manage your assets. So again, here's just another overview of that, which really just explains how the plan lies under the overall program, and it's really the tactical report that documents how we accomplish this, the program, and how we have outputs that help us with this decision making. And I do want to mention, as it says here, you know, the asset management plan is a complementary document to the master plan. Asset management plan is a living document, and the data that's gathered in it will be used as we renew master plans going forward. And all of this, again, these components are everything I'm describing is really fairly industry standard from an asset management perspective across industries, water, oil, other large asset intensive types of industries, using a very standardized, internationally standardized approach to managing the assets. So lastly here, I just want to get in a little bit about the plan that we talked about, the tactical actual asset management plan. It can deliver all of these different aspects of asset management that we discussed. We will be focusing primarily on the renewal and replacement schedule. These things here down at the bottom, when we are putting together the RFP for the plan, we will be looking at this. But the district has done a great job on aspects of this already. Condition assessments, remaining useful life, things like that are a lot of information we're already gathering in other CIPs. So we'll be moving forward with primarily the renewal, replacement, and funding strategy. The next steps then for the plan is we would like to recommend that we have some workshop with the Engineering and Equipment Committee, just to get your input on the focus of the asset management plan, the RFP itself, get the buy-in of the direction we're going with that. We'll release that, select the consultant, board approval, and move on towards the development of this plan. And just real quick, want to touch on where we are. This is a slide that the Engineering and Equipment Committee has seen. From when we started asset management as a concept within the district, started around 2017-18, where with just bringing on an asset management consultant, then fulfilling my position, et cetera, moving forward, a 3-year effort. The last 18 months is represented here in orange, where we've made progress. And as you can see, we're right about here, really developing the program, the plan, moving on toward this implementation when we get the plan put together with the consultant. And then going forward, as you can see, this area in green is just a continuous improvement of how we're using our data, refining the plan, and refreshing it as a living document. And with that, if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Susan and James. Appreciate the very comprehensive overview of our relatively new program. I remember when we started this 3 years ago, and we've made a lot of progress, Susan, thanks to your efforts. And I'm personally looking forward as your efforts produce more and more data to be able to make decisions based off that information, so that not only can we prolong the life of our system and get the most out of it, but ultimately the end goal of this is to have a more efficient system and more cost-effective system for our customers. And so what you do is very important, and we all certainly appreciate it. With that, I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments. If I can find my colleagues. I got all staff here. Sorry, hold tight.
Director Boyd Hodgson has her hand up.
Okay, thank you, Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. It was really informative. And I really appreciate the data-driven aspect of this, collecting a baseline and then also being able to pick and choose what aspects we replace rather than wholesale replacing something that may not need to be replaced for another couple of years. So pushing that down the road sounds really sound. 2 questions. Number 1, how often, because option 1 comes with a pretty hefty price tag, how often do we have to hire that firm again and pay out that money to measure? And number 2, as we are going down this path, it sounds like we are in the exact perfect time to open a dialogue about trying to achieve ISO 55000 certification. I don't know if we've ever talked about that as the district, but as we are doing this development, that would not only show that would be sort of a publicly recognized, outwardly facing way for people to see the quality and see the systems that we have in place and the consistency. So I would like to open that dialogue. I don't know how we do it, but I would like to just put that in the record that maybe we start looking at that at this point so that we can also, not only assure that we are looking into things and fixing them as needed, but also garner that public recognition that that's something that we stand for and that we value.
Yes, thank you very much, Director Boyd-Hodgson. With regard to your first question, we would bring a firm in to put the first asset management plan together. And that would take, of course, the most effort. And then going forward, probably every 3 to 4 years, we would need to refine it to get their input. But one of our goals of the RFP is to get either a program or a methodology that we internally can use. So with my position, with the district's supportive asset management, in the way that we do business, a lot of that knowledge will be internal. So that's an outcome of the RFP and the overall program that we're working towards is to become self-reliant and to really have it become just a core part of our business practices as we go forward, which a lot of it is. So part of the plan will be, in a way, just getting that initial documentation put together in a way that that we can work from internally. So there'll be much less reliance on having to go out again to get support for this for these sorts of documentation.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Director, so that after we get the first effort done, the repeated efforts every 3, 4, 5 years will just be a minor effort that will cost a fraction, 30, 40%, or even less maybe of the initial effort.
Yeah. And with regard to the ISO 55000, yes, absolutely. I mean, it really does demonstrate to internationally what we've accomplished and what our guidelines are for how we manage our assets. That's the goal, of that ISO program. I've participated in previous ISO standards certifications, and it's worth the effort to go through it. I haven't done the 55,000, but I certainly think that it's something that maybe as part of this, the RFP and the plan is to at least do maybe an assessment of what's involved. What's the level of effort, what's the cost, et cetera. But certainly it would demonstrate to our ratepayers how we manage our assets. And there are a few districts, a few water agencies in the United States that have attained that. Again, it is very widely accepted in other countries, Canada, for example, as well. But certainly appreciate your interest in that, and we'll certainly look forward and look into what's involved with that.
And Director Boyd-Hodgson, that's a great example of a supporting strategy or initiative that would couple with a strategic plan. And we're going to have our workshop on strategic planning tomorrow. So, getting ISO 55000 certified is a great example of something that staff would probably come back and seeking board approval. Is that where you want us to go to get to this asset management concept?
Thank you. I almost called it ISO 9000 because that's the last time I participated in a certification process. So I'm sure it's changed much since then. But thank you. Thank you for answering that and considering it and being open to talking about it.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the board? I don't see any hands. Well, once again, Susan, thank you so much for the presentation. James, thanks for contributing. Appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and move on if there's no other questions or comments.
And President Sanella, if I can just say a shout out to Susan. She's really accelerated this program for us since she's been on board. She's brought her wealth of knowledge from San Diego and took in just a couple of years what would have taken us probably 5 or more years to get to this point. So Susan, congratulations. Great job.
Thank you, General Manager.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll move on to action item 2.2. That particular item we just discussed was for information only, so no vote is required. And item 2.2 is Astera Utilis Satellite Leak Detection Collaboration Project with San Diego County Water Authority. I hope I said that right, but
Yeah, you did. And it's this is an innovative approach to try to determine where we may have deficiencies or leaks in our system on both the water and the wastewater side. And I think Susan's going to walk us through this one too, right?
Yes, thank you,
away.
General Manager. So actually it follows quite nicely. I don't know if we planned it this way, but it follows quite nicely in what we just talked about. And in fact, this is an effort that was initiated by the San Diego County Water Authority about 5 months ago, put together a regional collaboration and in fact titled it Innovating Asset Management, a Regional Collaboration in San Diego. And what their intention was is to bring together all of the agencies of the County Water Authority and be able to really optimize, use economies of scale to look at the different technologies that may allow the participating agencies to move forward with different asset management components that we had in fact just talked about. Key, of course, in that is condition assessment. So we had a County Water Authority arranged for a demonstration from a company called Utilis, Astera Utilis, which performs satellite leak detection. And in fact, it's a technology that they developed originally to discover water on Mars, under subsurface water via signatures of the chemical makeup of water under the surface. And they have now used this technology to assist water districts internationally to identify leaks. And interestingly enough, although they are based outside of the United States, they also have an office here in San Diego. And so the different agencies have looked at this, and there's quite a bit of interest among the different participating agencies to do this technology. One of the benefits is that doing the satellite scanning, of course, they're scanning regionally. So, we're not just approaching this company asking them to look at Vallecitos's district. They're looking at all of the County Water Authority districts. And so we would like to ask your approval to proceed with utilizing this technology to determine if there are any observable leaks that will allow us to do further evaluation using crews on the ground. Again, optimizing where our crews go to see where there may be leaks using this technology. It is great to have this collaboration with the County Water Authority, and the costs are going to be covered under our asset management CIP that's intended to do condition assessments of water pipelines. The cost to the Vallecitos Water District would be $63,224. And that is a significant discount from the core cost if we were to go with the technology directly ourselves. We're getting a member discount of 10% from the Water Authority, as well as another collective discount of 30% because we're able to participate in this collaboration. So we are requesting that we receive your support to approve the selection of this option to do this satellite scanning, $63,224,000 for these detection services provided by Utilis. And also that you would authorize the general manager to proceed with establishing an MOU with the San Diego County Water Authority to contract with Utilis for said services.
Thank you again, Susan. Pretty fascinating presentation and about some new innovative technology. I didn't even know that was a possibility until I was reading through my board packet in preparation for tonight's meeting, and it was pretty interesting to learn. I had one quick question, then I'll turn it over to my colleagues if they have any questions. Is the 63,000, is this a one-time, is it not just the money piece of it, both the money, but also just the overall process? Is this a one-time scan? Is this an ongoing scan? Is it $63,000 every time they look at our region? Can you elaborate a little bit further on that?
Yes, certainly. It is for a one-time scan. And what we're going to do with that is when we get the data back, we'll see how much information we get from it, if they've been able to identify leaks. If we find that this technology has great promise, we'll be able to participate again. I think the County Water Authority intends to do this routinely. And so through this collaboration, if we felt that it's valuable, we could proceed. However, I think that when we do this single scan, we'll really get a lot of information. We'll send our crews out and see if they can validate any leaks that may have been identified. And then we'll take an assessment from there and see if it's something that we want to proceed with again.
Yeah, and President Sanella, I think the real value of what I will call a pilot project is the ground proofing, right? So we may get data where the satellite says we think there's a leak here and here, but you won't really know until you actually send crews out in those areas to dig it up and determine whether there was or wasn't a leak. So you want to get some really high confidence level between what the satellite imagery is showing you and what the crews in the field are actually seeing. And if that's a really high confidence level, then it's probably a tool we'll continue to use in the future. If we just can't correlate what we're seeing on the ground with what the satellite shows us, this may be a one and done venture. We're optimistic. I would say it's proven technology. They've found where there's subsurface water on a far off planet, but there's not a lot of paved roads and concrete on Mars that's hiding pipelines. So we need to see, are we going to be able to see using the technology of the satellite, can we see through pavement? Can we see through concrete and landscaped areas to see the subsurface water? So, and I think this higher level, the $63,000 includes some of that, I'll call ground proofing. To help us correlate the data that we see.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from my colleagues?
Yes.
Okay. Whoa.
I think you had Director Hernandez and Delethar before me.
Okay, Director Elthar.
Yes, Susan, thanks for the presentation. It was really informative. In the board package, it says for option 1, the full package is 2 satellite scans. So how much time would there be between the 2 scans, I guess?
You know what? I am not certain of that. I believe what they do is they'll scan and then they'll analyze and then they'll scan and analyze. So we do expect to get data back quickly from this, but I can get more information on that for you.
And that's correct. That's correct. It's a scan, and then they go back and do a rescan of all the areas to get more, I guess, more high resolution or better data from that area. So it's the double scan is to basically try and do as much from the sky to pinpoint the areas to this way when they ground proof, it's been narrowed to a smaller area.
Okay, thanks.
Director Hernandez.
So $63,000 is a little bit of money, and they're going to identify to us subsurface water leaks or sewer leaks that would then identify to us areas where we need repairs prior to a full-on break and really cause us some extra dollars. Is that what I understand?
That's one potential use, and that's a big one. If we can identify a catastrophic break before it occurs, then we're just fixing a portion of a pipe instead of fixing hundreds of feet of roadway above the pipe as well, if you wait for the pipeline to blow. Plus, value of lost water, if you don't detect a leak early, the damage to the environment if you have an ongoing sewer leak, all of those things are possible outcomes.
And another value to this really is, as opposed to say doing a leak detection similar to what we had done in San Elijo Hills, which was on the ground, and you're impacting traffic, you're impacting the residents, or certainly in the higher commercial areas where you're impacting the folks. There's no impact to the ground. Yeah, I mean there's no impact unless we send the crews out. So that's a value to this type of technology, is it's really no touch type of technology.
Continue. Has anybody else enrolled in this satellite, and what's their background? What's their input into this?
Just
Right.
from our,
Yeah, so the other agencies that are moving forward are Oceanside, Carlsbad, Rainbow. Fallbrook had already initiated with them and is looking at the results there. It is a new technology that we're looking at here, but internationally, they've shown that they've identified a significant amount of leaks, say, in the areas where they've done. They have pinpointed, they've saved over 3 million gallons per day in certain areas where they've done this. And so in our area, again, it's new, and this is where the value of having County Water Authority move forward with this is the regional approach, because it is an investment. And because we're doing this regionally, that's where we're all benefiting from the economies of scale. So smaller districts haven't really been able to look at something like this because it's an expensive approach if you're looking at a small area to do these kinds of scans.
Director Hernandez, they've stated that through their efforts, they've already saved 70 billion gallons of water for other agencies. We don't know if it's going to work for us, but for the amount, considering the whole district, it's part of our objectives to see how to do leak detection, because the in-ground tool for leak detection and pipeline assessment is extremely expensive. So we're looking at ways that we could reduce the area in which we need to deploy a very expensive and intrusive method. And if there's value in this, it could really be beneficial. We don't know if there's going to be value in it until we see the results.
Yeah, and it's probably not an either or on the technology. It's probably a little bit of both, depending on the application.
Mm-hmm.
And President Sinella, Director Pennick has his hand raised.
yeah, I see that.
Okay.
I was just waiting to see if Director Hernandez was finished.
Yeah,
Director
no,
Pennick?
No,
Okay.
a lot of questions have been answered. I mean, I see the benefits, but there's a few causes for concern. One, I don't even know where to go. So you answered the question on pinpointing it. I mean, when you say they can pinpoint it to an area, I mean, are we going to dig up an area of an acre? Are we going to dig up an area of a 5 by 5? I mean, how do we know how they're pinpointing that?
I believe Director Pennick in the staff report, they kind of showed you an example. They actually highlight the areas of the street because they know the pipes are in the street. Probably at least an example on page 53 of your board packet.
Yeah.
It's kind of what they show. The red areas are areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, the red areas are areas of potential leak. So it's pinpoint to the street, to the pipe. It's not a big area that says dig somewhere in this acre. Now this, I don't know if it's going to be successful like this for us. And
Right.
we've already asked questions about, how do you differentiate between groundwater and existing water coming from pipes? They have experience in both, and we're going to wait and see if there's value in this. It's a tremendous saving on the asset for the asset management plan on condition assessment. If there's no value in this from the results, then we go back to the drawing board and keep on trying different methodologies. We know we have a method that works. but I mean, just doing a mile pipe with the in pipe method is going to cost you $500,000, $600,000, or maybe a little less, maybe $300,000, $400,000. So you can see the scale difference here. If there's a value here, even if there's a small value, it'll more than pay for itself.
So no, I see that, and I see that. I mean, it sounds like it's a $63,000 test, kind of. And then, I mean, like was asked about, how often? I mean, if it's a 2-time, I mean, we don't have a leak today. They do the satellite imaging. Then 3 days from now, we have a leak, and we missed it. So I mean, it's just there's not a subscription like they're going to do it over a certain period of time. It's just once, and then 2-3 months later, it's going to be another time, and then hopefully there's a leak. I mean, we don't want a leak, but if there is, it's during that satellite imaging when they're doing that.
Some agencies budget annually for leak detection. I know, like for example, Otay Water District does it either annually or semi-annually. They do a leak detection of their whole system.
But with this one, this is just like one and then another one a couple months later at the time.
It's a point in time. It's a snapshot.
The snapshot. And we're hoping, I mean, if there's a leak, it's there. And if there's not, and there's a leak 3 weeks later, then we missed that $63,000 test was a C instead of an A.
Yep. Right. But if there's value in it, then it could be something that's part of our program.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. I see the value kind of almost, but it seems like it's untested. And then that's what we're paying for the test, I guess. I mean, and I know $63 isn't a huge amount, but it's a good amount of money that we have to explain to our ratepayers. And I'm just going for a one-time satellite snapshot from Mars, or not from Mars, but I'm just being facetious. But all right, no, I see the value, but there's just some concerns. That's all I wanted to voice.
Yeah, Director Pennick, we share your concerns, and we'll be looking at this closely. We're not ready to say we're going to do this every year. We're going to go through this pilot project. We're going to ground proof it. We're going to see if it correlates, and we'll evaluate it. We'll report through the Equipment and Engineering and Equipment Committee, and we'll come back to the board with a recommendation at a future date based on what we find.
And there's not a district that we can talk to that has already done that evaluation?
I'll look to Susan and James on that.
Yeah, we can follow up with that. Again, within the San Diego area, Fallbrook has just initiated this and is looking at it. We can look at other districts. You know, they've proven this outside of the San Diego region where they have identified these leaks. I think even like we saw this picture from within the staff report is showing an outcome and in an area that they looked at. With the collaboration, that's the intention is to see how does this technology apply to our region and our topography, et cetera. And again, with that, we'll also learn, you know, do we have leaks in the system? Even with this one-time pass-through, we'll have a better understanding of leaks that may or may not. If we find that there's not a lot, then it may be something that then we know that we don't need to invest in on a regular basis.
In my guess, as with any technology, it's going to get cheaper as time goes on. And there may be a day where they do daily scans. I don't know. It's not, you know, now it's $62,000 for a snapshot, but in the future, maybe it's something they do weekly or daily or whenever you want it. So it's nice to know if the technology works, and then we can figure out if it's worth pursuing and investing in.
Thank you.
Great discussion, everybody. I don't currently see any more hands, so.
Yeah, we have Director Elitharp, Director Hernandez, and Operations and Maintenance Manager Pedrazzi.
Okay, let's go with Director Hernandez again.
If we decide not to do it this time, but choose to do it at a later time, do you think the price is going to increase, or can we wait for potentially another round of collaboration?
I think you're going to miss the big discount being in the first wave with a group of participants, right? If we wait till next year, we may find that all the other districts have done it and they're not going to do it for another couple of years, and then we'd be on our own. And we'd probably see a higher cost if we waited, but maybe, you know, what I said previously, maybe 5 years from now, it's a lot cheaper, but if we wait 1 year, it's probably going to cost us more to go off on our own or with a smaller group.
Thank you.
Director Elitharp?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, if this technology proves out, if you could save or prevent just one catastrophic pipeline failure per year, it pays for itself. Because you can easily spend upward of $100,000 rebuilding a roadway that's been washed out by a large high pressure pipeline. So I don't think it's a lot of money to try it out, and we might find out that it's very economical.
And President Sinella, maybe a good time to ask Ed Pedrazzi his experience, because he's the one that's out there fixing these when they go. So if
Yeah, absolutely. I see Director Boyd Hodgson shaking her head yes, so I will go to Ed first.
Thank you, President Snella. Director Ellerthorpe kind of stole some of my thunder there. I just remind the board, a year or two ago, we had two water main breaks, one on Echo Lane and one on Applewild, that each were over $100,000 just to repair the asphalt. That did not include staff time to make the mainline repair. So Director Elderthorpe is correct. If it found one that would prevent damages like that, that would be fantastic. And to Director Pinnock's question that James mostly answered, if they give us, say, a street where you might have a leak in it, they're showing a 100-foot section, we do have our own acoustic techniques that we can use and equipment that would help us to narrow it down, so we're not digging up 100 foot of street to look for a leak. So we wouldn't just start tearing up a street. We'd make sure we're detecting something.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you. My question is about potential displacement of our workforce. Will this replace anyone currently inspecting our pipelines?
no, I don't see that being a possibility. It'll just help us focus where they're being deployed.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And I apologize if your hand was raised earlier. It blends into your hand blends into your background there.
Okay. The only hand I see is Ed's, and I think that's just because he had it up before.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay. So if there's no other discussion or regarding this item, I will throw it out to the board for a motion if any board member feels so inclined. And we don't have any public comment, right?
We do not.
Okay.
I move to adopt staff's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, great. So we have a motion by Director Boyd Hodgson and a second by Director Ellerthorpe on item 2.2 to approve staff's recommendation, or two recommendations. One is to approve option 1 for satellite leak detection services, and the second part of that is to authorize the general manager to proceed with establishing an MOU with San Diego County Water Authority to contract with Utilus for satellite leak detection services. I'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Ellerthorpe.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Pinnock.
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you again, Susan and Ed and Glenn, and the total team effort.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on. Item 2.3, it's a design engineering professional services agreement. You want to introduce us?
I will. Thank you, President Sinella. So this is a project that's going to start the process to address our most acute safety hazard in the district, which is our storage of chlorine gas down at Meadowlark. I know Ed's not presenting the item tonight, but I know he's very glad that we're finally getting onto this project, because it's his folks that are down there working at Meadowlark all the time. So, and I think Ryan Morgan is actually making the presentation tonight. So Ryan, take it away.
Thank you, General Manager Prum. Good evening, President Sinella and directors of the board. It's my pleasure to present this item tonight for the award of professional services agreement for the design of the Meadowlark conversion to sodium hypochlorite. For those who do not know, Meadowlark Water Reclamation Facility currently uses 100% chlorine gas as a disinfectant to meet state regulations for treatment to reclaimed water standards. Chlorine gas is an acute hazard. It presents a danger to district staff and the residents in the immediate area. Use of chlorine gas requires the district to also maintain several extensive state and federal safety programs, equipment, and hazardous materials response team. This requires a considerable amount of staff time and district resources. The conversion to chlorine gas to bulk storage of sodium hypochlorite removes the acute hazard and replaces it with a storage and injection of bleach solution at 12.5% that removes the district's requirement to maintain several of these safety programs and permits for the Metal Arc site. Use of bleach disinfectant does not create a acute hazard as a replacement of the existing acute hazard in chlorine gas in the event of a spill. So this project is really an operational priority to remove the existing acute hazard and reduce regulatory requirements and operations and maintenance staff time at Metal Arc. The project is scheduled for planning and design in the fiscal year 21-22 CIP budget. With this, the district submitted a request for proposals to 5 local engineering firms on July 1st. The firms were asked to present their relative experience in designing wastewater process and chemical feed improvement systems of similar nature. 5 firms that were asked to propose are listed on page 56 of your board packet. On August 5th, staff received proposals from 4 of the 5 firms, including Murray Smith, Kleinfelder, Kennedy Jenks, and IEC Adura. District staff reviewed the proposals and rated each firm based on their experience of similar projects, how well they address the RFP requirements, project approach, scope, and fee, labor hours, and schedule. After review, staff shortlisted 2 of the firms, Murray Smith and Kleinfelder, who conducted virtual interviews in follow-up on August 31st before the selection review panel. Staff followed up with Murray Smith on September 3rd to request some clarifications and refinement to the proposed scope of work. And on September 13th, staff presented this item to the Engineering and Equipment Committee. Murray Smith provided a revised scope of work and fee estimate on September 20th, and Murray Smith was determined to be the most responsive and qualified consultant with a total fee of $421,921. This is for design and bid phase professional engineering and environmental services. The fiscal impact is identified on page 57 of your board packet. As I mentioned, it is called for in the fiscal year 21-22 budget with an total budget amount of $1.845 million. The funding source for the project is 100% from reclaimed water funds, and the total estimated project cost and budget summary are broken down on page 57, showing the design, engineering, and environmental services to Murray Smith at $421,921. Additional staff services, overhead materials, and process engineering peer review services, which have yet to be awarded, are identified as estimated fees at this point in time, which brings the total estimated fee to date at $636,921. With this, staff, with the support of the Engineering and Equipment Committee, recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the General Manager to execute a professional services agreement with Murray Smith in the amount of $421,921 for project design, bid phase, engineering, and environmental services for the Metal Arc conversion to sodium hypochlorite project. If there are any questions, I can take those at this time.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate the presentation. Any questions, comments? First hand I saw was Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you. Ryan, can you tell me what they do with the gas once they remove it? How do they dispose of it?
Well, there's chlorine gas cylinders which require disposal, which those can simply go back to the vendor, distributor, manufacturer of the chlorine gas. There's a chlorine scrubber on site that will require potential hazardous materials removal. But the rest of the piping and appurtenances of the system are pretty straightforward as far as demolition is concerned. There will be some hazardous materials removals as part of the project, though.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Brian, I just wanted to say, one of the first tours that I took after being elected to the board was with Ed. And this was back in 2014. And I still remember today how much Ed stressed that this chlorine process that we use, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not just at Meadowlark, but do we do something with this at our Twin Oaks plant too, just to kind of give a little extra boost to the cleansing of the water up there too?
Yeah, that was part of the tour. We were still using chlorine gas at the Twin Oaks Reservoir facility when you came on board, and we removed that and put an on-site generation system of bleach at the Twin Oaks Reservoir facility.
Yeah.
So that was a project a few years ago. So when I started here, we had 5 sites that had chlorine gas, and Meadowlark is our last one to get rid of it. So I'll be real happy to see that gone before I retire.
Yeah, I remember, even though it was 6-7 years ago, that how much you stressed that this was, our biggest risk, and one of the things that we really had to take very seriously. And the Meadowlark facility happens to fall in my district, and as you guys can see from the aerial views of it, it's surrounded by neighborhoods, and I spent a lot of time in those neighborhoods, going door to door, talking to our constituents around there, and a lot of them don't even know the plant's there. That's how well our team does with that wastewater plant. But I really don't think many of them really know that there was chlorine gas, right down the road from them. So I think they'll all be happy to hear that we've changed that process. And so we're doing it for all the right reasons, I believe, environmentally, safety, but the cherry on top of all this is that it's all going to be reimbursed through the sale of our recycled water that's produced at the plant. So over time, it's not going to happen right away, but over time, it'll be completely paid for from the folks that buy our reclaimed water, like Olivia Hayne Water District and the city of Carlsbad. So that's even a better thing. So, Director Elthart?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I wholeheartedly support this project. In my former professional life, I had the unpleasant task of having to prepare inundation maps of surrounding neighborhoods, or in case of a chlorine leak that got beyond the chlorine scrubber and out into the surrounding area. So it's an extremely important project to get done, and I would happily move staff's recommendation.
Great. Well, we haven't heard from Hernandez. Or Director Pennick, would you like to comment, or are you comfortable with everything?
Oh, no, we've talked about this. I'll second the motion, actually.
Okay. Well, then if there's no other discussion, then we'll go ahead and take action. So we have a motion by Director Elthart, second by Director Hernandez on item 2.3 to approve staff's recommendation. And I'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Pennick?
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Elthart?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation, and great job to everybody that was involved with this project. Moving on to item 2.4. It's a notice of a draft initial study and mitigated negative declaration.
Yeah, I'll kick that off, President Sinella. So the board has already awarded a contract for the design services to repair or replace a couple of lines that we have, our emergency bypass line and the fail-safe line, and they run side by side with each other. But as part of the project, we have to do some environmental work. And what this is to talk about the environmental requirements going forward on the project. And Ryan, are you taking this one as well?
I am.
All right, take it away.
All right, thank you, General Manager Pruitt. This project, again, as the directors will probably remember, is an operational priority for the district. It came before the board on March 17th to award PSA for design services. And this is really to rehabilitate the district's critical infrastructure, the emergency bypass sewer pipeline. And while we're at it, at the same time, we're going to go ahead and rehabilitate the parallel fail-safe outfall. And in this corridor right here between Carrillo Way and Melrose Drive, we have some environmentally sensitive areas in which triggered this CEQA initial study and mitigated negative declaration, which we're talking about tonight. The project is currently approaching final design, and we've been working on it since March. In an evaluation of potential environmental impacts, we needed to perform per the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Staff authorized professional services agreement in March, which also included services for Recon Environmental. Happens to be a district as needed consultant for environmental. To prepare an initial study in MND for the project corridor I just talked about, which resides in the city of Carlsbad. Recon compiled their environmental studies and completed an initial study to evaluate these effects of the proposed changes on the environment. Based on the reports contained in the initial study, staff determined that the proposed project may impact the environment, and the proposed project scope has been revised to add specific trenchless technology measures to avoid and to mitigate the potential impacts in these sensitive corridors and areas. Staff recommends per CEQA section 15070 that a mitigated negative declaration be prepared. As part of the CEQA effort, staff created a map and contact list for all properties within 500 feet of this project corridor. And we will submit a copy of the notice of preparation for mitigated negative declaration to each of the property owners. Those parties interested can contact the district to receive additional project information. The draft mitigated negative declaration will also be posted to the district's website. CEQA section 15073 requires that the notice of preparation, initial study, and draft MND be sent to agencies and interested parties concerned with the project. These parties have 30 calendar days to respond with comments. Following the public review period, the draft MND, together with any comments received during the public outreach review process, will be submitted to the board for consideration and approval. Fiscal impact is on page 61, and funding for this project is provided entirely through the district's sewer rehabilitation fund 210, or replacement fund, I'm sorry. The project was planned in the district's fiscal year 21-22 budget with a total amount of $3.21 million. And with this, staff recommends authorizing circulation of the emergency bypass pipeline rehabilitation project notice of preparation, initial study, and draft mitigated negative declaration for a 30-day minimum public review period. If there are any questions, I can take those at this time.
Thanks again, Ryan. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? I don't see any. So, and I don't have any either. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I can make a motion to approve as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. And so we have a motion by Director Pinnock and a second by Director Ellerthart to, with regards to item 2.4, to approve staff's recommendation. We'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Hernandez? I'm sorry, Director Ellerthart?
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson?
Yes.
Director Pinnock?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Almost gave you 2 votes to Jim.
Yeah, well, I should deserve to.
Well, that concludes our action items this evening, and we'll move on to our reports. General Manager.
Yeah, I have a few, President Sanella. So first one, Miracosta College sent us an invitation to an open house for their recently constructed student center. And in addition to the open house, they will be providing an update highlighting the college's positive impact on the community and future workforce. The event is scheduled for Monday, October 25th from 4 to 5:30 at the Miracosta Community Learning Center, which is on Mission Avenue in Oceanside. I would like to point out that this is not an event that has been pre-approved for director per diem and expenses. And any directors interested in attending can contact Ann. Second item, update on Metropolitan and County Water Authority lawsuits. I sent an email previously today, but I don't know if the board had a chance to see it, but more good news on the financial front. So County Water Authority recently received $36 million from Metropolitan as part of the judgment of the water rate challenge that was initiated by the County Water Authority. And the primary challenge was that Metropolitan was including what's called water stewardship charges on the Colorado River water supplies that the Water Authority transports through the MWD systems. And the courts found that this was illegal and ordered Metropolitan to return the illegal charges with interest. So you may recall that the Water Authority recently received about $44 million in funds for similar previous year lawsuits. So when you couple this $36 million with that 44, that's going to be over $80 million that the Water Authority would have received back from Metropolitan. There's still an outstanding attorney's fees provision related to the lawsuit that has not yet been decided. And during that period of time, that's another $14 million. And although Metropolitan is still appealing the attorney's fee provision, Water Authority expects to prevail on those as well. And if they do prevail, that would bring the total to $94 million. So nearing $100 million in return. If you add in the avoided rate increases, because Metropolitan stopped imposing those illegal rates several years ago, the total savings to the San Diego County ratepayers will be nearly $140 million. So it's a lawsuit that was worth filing and pursuing. So Vallecitos' share of that $36 million is estimated to be about $1.3 million. And all I'm doing is prorating, when Water Authority got 44 million before, we got 1.6 million of that. So if you take the same proration, our share of this one should be about $1.3 million. We have not received the money from the Water Authority yet, so we have nothing to add to our coffers. But at some point in time, when we do get the money, the board will probably be asked to make a decision what they want to do with those funds, like they did with the $44 million previously. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back to the board as that item progresses. Third item, I want to talk about Tesla batteries. You may recall that Vallecitos has been selected to receive some backup battery installations from Tesla. There's no cost to Vallecitos, and funding is being provided by, I think it's the CPUC, but indirectly through other means. Our only cost would be the staff time that we invest to review the plans and inspect the work, things like that. So 6 of our facilities have been selected to benefit from the battery installation, and those include our administrative headquarters, so the building I'm in right now, that site. We also have pump stations at Double Peak, Palos Vista, and San Alejo, and we also have facilities at Twin Oaks and Meadowlark Reclamation. So those are the 6 facility sites that have been approved. We're about to have construction begin at the first facility, which is our admin facility, and that's supposed to start on Monday. So that's going to be work that's starting real soon. Construction is expected to take about 3 months, and the other 5 facilities will follow sometime after that. And when completed, the battery installations will help each facility operate during power outages and enable the district to operate each facility more efficiently, helping us to avoid any kind of peaking time of use charges. So next to last item, just want to publicly announce that James Gumpel is our new Assistant General Manager. Susan actually beat me to the punch and used his title in the meeting earlier, but James has been with us for over 16 years, and it was previously our district engineer. He's hardworking, he's thoughtful, he's conscientious, and I know he's going to be a great asset to the district and to me in this new position. So congratulations, James. And we're in the process of recruiting for his replacement now. And the last thing for me, I just want to remind the board that we have our strategic planning workshop tomorrow. It's going to be held at the San Marcos City Hall in their Valley of Discovery room. The meeting starts at 8:30 and we expect it to be completed by 2 o'clock. And that's all I have to report tonight.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. Lots of good news. Exciting stuff. And congratulations, James, if you're still here.
Yeah, James had to go to a training program in Orange County. So I don't know if he left. He may be on the road already.
Okay. Moving on to legal counsel report.
Yes, I had 2 updates tonight. One is on AB 361, which amended the government code regarding teleconferencing during a pandemic. Some of you may remember under the former Brown Act, where we held teleconferencing meetings. If you were calling in, you had to leave your door open at your hotel and post an agenda. Those provisions are still there, but they've included other teleconferencing provisions that allow us to meet as we are tonight during a proclaimed pandemic and assuming other conditions have been met. Just to clarify, we are still under a proclaimed state of emergency by the governor's declaration was issued in March. Only certain of those provisions ended September 30th. Under the new law, if we're going to continue having teleconference meetings, we're going to have to take action at the next meeting within the next 30 days for the board to take a vote and decide whether they want to continue. Part of that law would require for the state to still be in a state of emergency, and for the board to find that either the state of emergency impacts the ability of members to participate safely in person, or that state and local officials continue to impose measures to promote social distancing. I'd exchanged emails with several of you. We're currently under the provision where the state has issued either recommendations or impositions for promoting social distancing, and we're still under a state of emergency, so that's what we're qualified under. But I'll be working with General Manager Prum and staff for the next meeting to bring forth required actions for your consideration. The second item is
Hey, Jim, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question on that one? As part of your item that you're going to bring forth at the next meeting, I think we're probably time to have another kind of board discussion around not just doing what we're required to do to maintain our teleconferencing, but maybe it's good time to just touch base with the full board about the whole concept of going back into the boardroom. As you know, you may or may not know, but we've received 2 or 3 written comments from the public asking us to do that, and it might just be time to have that discussion.
Yeah, and President Sanella, that's how I envision the agendized item being placed at the next meeting. It'll be open for a discussion about returning to in-person meetings, and/or the board making the finding that they want to continue with the video conferencing, and then make the proper findings and give that direction. So we will agendize it so the board can have that discussion about whether it's time to go back into in-person meetings.
All right, thank you.
The second item is SB 155, which took effect on October 1st. This is the moratorium on water shutoffs. As you may recall, it applied to residential service. It has now been expanded, and it applies to all water service, all classes of customers, residential and small business, and is in effect until at least December 31st of 2021. So currently, under this law, water service cannot be terminated for non-payment for services, and the law, as I mentioned, will be in effect at least until December 31st of 2021. That's all I have to report, President Sanella.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate the updates. Going to move on to the San Diego County Water Authority, Director Ellithorpe.
Thank you, President Sanella. The board, CWA board, met at their regular September board meeting on the 23rd. A couple board actions. The board authorized the general manager to renew the enterprise resource planning system software annual maintenance and support agreements with Oracle USA for 2 years at a total cost of $623,274 and change. Next, the board adopted the Water Authority's 2021 long-range financing plan. The board authorized the general manager to execute a design reimbursement agreement with the city of Poway for supporting their new treated water connection and their Poway number 5 flow control facility. And lastly, the board authorized the general manager to award a contract to Southwest Valve and Equipment to purchase 2 72-inch butterfly valves in the amount of $646,000 $868 and change for the pipeline 5 relining from Twin Oaks Valley Road to Crossover Pipeline Turnout Project. And a 72-inch butterfly valve is an extremely large valve. It is hard to put that in perspective, but it's not something that's sitting on the shelf at Home Depot. So it's a significant piece of equipment. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Althorpe. Moving on to 3.4, the Encino Wastewater Authority. Jim and I updated the last board at our last board meeting of the provided an update for the September Board of Directors meeting of Encina, and the Policy and Finance Committee meets next Tuesday. So I don't have any updates. Has the Capital Improvement Committee met, Jim?
No, we don't meet until the week after that.
Okay. So we'll move that. Nothing to report on 3.4. We'll move into 3.5. Have any of the standing committees met since our last meeting? And would the chairs of those committees like to provide an update? Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you, President Snell. The P3 committee met on Monday, October the 4th, and I am pleased to report that we are still moving forward with the internship setup. And I'm so happy about this program. I think it's really going to add value to our community and to our district. We're still on track to get some folks in beginning in the spring. So I wanted to put that out there. Secondly, a few months ago, a constituent reached out to me who happened to be on the board of the San Alejo Hills HOA. And he brought it to my attention that Vallecitos had been sending out 43 different bills to that single customer, and they're one of our largest customers. So General Manager Pruitt and myself and the leaders at the HOA have been working together, Chris Robbins as well, to streamline that process and make it a little bit more efficient. And it looks like we have reached some kind of agreement where many of that has been combined. It's reduced the inefficiency of sending out so many bills. It's helped the HOA, and they're one of our largest customers. So that could potentially be a template for if we have other customers. I know that it's been done at the city too. I'm remiss if I don't mention that as well. But it was first done at the city. Now it's being implemented at the San Alejo Hills HOA. So I'm proud that we are making progress on that to try to help our customers and also help the district at the same time. Oh, and the next meeting will be November 1st.
Great, thank you. Any other committee updates?
Yes, the Legal and Legis Committee met yesterday, and we're recommending that that we put forward a review of both our legal counsel and our general manager, 360 review actually, because if you recall, we missed the extension date in March, and we have a new one coming up next March in 2022, whether to extend the contract with Best and Krieger for another year. Prior to that, I think it was discussed at one of the previous board meetings, well, we should in fact evaluate our legal counsel and at the same time evaluate our general manager. So in order to get the evaluations in place so that we can review them and then have them ahead of time in order to make a decision whether or not to extend the Best and Krieger contract as per contract for another year, moving forward with a evaluation is what we talked about. And I think General Manager Pruitt may have a little more to add on that, but that's the general direction we're recommending.
Yeah, I would just add that I will be placing closed session items on the October 20th meeting, one for evaluation of the general counsel and one for the evaluation of the general manager. Both of those will be kind of kickoff to the evaluation process, and it may take a meeting or 2 or 3 meetings to wrap up the whole process. But the intent is to start the process formally on October 20th in closed session.
Yeah, it's just that time of year. We've done annual evaluations of both our legal counsel and our general manager annually. That you're just saying, Jim Hernandez, that your committees basically spoke about this and recognized that, hey, we're coming up to the end of the year. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes, and we want to prepare ourselves for a decision prior to March of 2022.
Yeah, and President Sinella, thanks for that clarification. There's nothing unusual about the timing. This is when we would typically schedule those evaluations.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you guys were on top of it. Thank you. Any other committees?
I have a quick question about that because I did notice that Director Hernandez said a 360 evaluation. Is that typically the way that it works? Because I know we've had prior discussions about 360, and I thought that we were still sort of not sure if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I guess I would say from my recollection of the meeting, we didn't decide on a 360. It was mentioned that that's something that the board can discuss at the October 20th when we kick off the performance evaluation discussions.
Yeah, I would just add, I think, Glenn, my evaluation, BBK's has been a 360 because it goes to staff and the board, or it did in the past. But the question would be how they want to handle yours and both of them. That could be discussed at the closed sessions.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Jim.
Okay. Any other committees? Hearing none, we'll move on to directors' reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars. I don't have anything to report out at this meeting. Do any of my colleagues? I see Director Ellisar's got a hand up.
Yeah, I attended an Aqua-sponsored webinar put on by Terra Verde Energy on September 21st. If you'll recall, Terra Verde was the consultant we used to develop and implement our 2 solar projects. They're now an Aqua preferred provider for energy consulting services. And also on September 28th, I attended the Aqua Energy Committee. And so I'll summarize some takeaways from both of those meetings. The first thing is solar and battery project incentives are declining in 2022. And particularly current battery storage and combination battery solar incentives are being used up particularly fast. So I guess the upshot is if you got any projects that you're looking for funding to get applications in quickly. So the other big topic at both meetings was fleet electrification. And so there's a proposed CARB clean fleet rule that's supposed to be finalized in about a year from now. And what it requires basically is by 2024 that 50% of fleet purchases need to be zero emission vehicles. And then by 2027, 100% of vehicle purchases need to be zero emission vehicles. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule. But there's the good news is there's lots of funding opportunities right now. I've discussed this with General Manager Prune, and he assures me that they're seeking funding. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any other meetings, conferences, seminars? Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you. So I attended the Special Districts Leadership Academy and with Director Pennock. And we did so in order to take a few courses in order to enable our district to achieve a certain level of status regarding transparency. And it was very informative. There was a lot of discussion around having best practice policies in place. So I'm looking forward to having a look at the CSDA policy manual and sort of cross-referencing, what they recommend and seeing if we have something that's comparable, if it needs to be updated, when's the last time we looked at it, and putting in place with, of course, the input of you all, putting together a policy manual for the board that will help board members do their jobs and update some of the policies that are best practice that we should be doing.
Great, thank you. Any other reports? I do not see any hands, so we'll move on. Moving on to nothing for item 4.1 on tonight's agenda. So we'll move on to item 5.1, director's comments or future agenda items. I already spoke about the one item regarding returning back to the boardroom earlier, so that's been handled. Are there any other future agenda items that anybody wants to bring up? Okay, well, that takes us to 6.1, which is adjournment, and just want to thank everybody who attended the meeting from the public, and of course staff for all the phenomenal presentations, and my colleagues for a wonderful meeting. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you all
you.
tomorrow.
Everyone, good night.
Thanks.
Night, everyone.
Good night.